Good evening, everybody. Welcome to live here on Thursday. Born Political. I have a new set. You normally have a table blocking me. You're going to get to see all of me tonight. It's going to be a little bit different. Exciting guest tonight. If you are not aware, there is a race. Most folks don't know that because there's only two in the entire state of Connecticut. A lot of times after an election, folks will, in this case, Christine Conley vacated her seat because she's going to be accepting a appointment as a judge. We congratulate her on that. But that did leave an open seat, and there's two folks going for that position. Tonight I have Boris, who I know very well. I serve on the Groton Economic Development Committee with him. Bob, welcome to the show, and I'm glad to see you have your hat in the ring. And
thank you. Thanks for having me, Joe.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, so exciting times.
Yeah.
We talked off air, and meeting people is different because it's winter.
Different. It's different in the cold. I think people appreciate, your dedication if you're knocking on the door and it's 10 degrees out. But it's that condensed time frame. So it's a month. It was basically a month campaign, and early voting started today. Yeah. So
So you ran for office before, so you knew knocking on doors what it was going to be like. Before we started, before the show aired, you talked about your new technique of putting signs in. I don't know if you want to share that.
Yeah.
Because it is a secret for if you're running in the winter.
Well, yeah. So the weather's been going up and down, so you get frosted ground. So you try to put those lawn signs in, and it's getting it into the ground. So I got a power drill with a long bit and zap it in there, and it puts in there and helps.
Now that's ingenuity.
Yeah.
As soon as you said it, I'm like, that's exactly what I would have probably did.
Yeah.
You figure it out and you move along. Yeah. So we have this election, and it's coming up on already Tuesday.
Yeah.
And people are voting tonight, right? Correct?
Yeah. Today was the first early voting at the Register of Voters.
Yeah.
So I think it's today through Sunday.
Today through Sunday. So if you're listening out there and you want to vote, who knows what the weather's going to be on Tuesday? Yeah. Nobody really knows. This is New England. Anything can happen. Yeah. So I myself, personally, I'll be voting probably tomorrow. Okay. I encourage everybody else, go out there, get voting, because this is going to be an election where the numbers will be low. And mostly because folks don't know that there's even an election, and I think people have election fatigue.
Well,
Imagine that.
That's a whole nother show we could do on people's election fatigue in general. But I think that was one thing I noticed when I was connecting with people. Just the last time you ran, or when you run for town council and things, you're right into the issues. A lot of times it's just, oh wow, I didn't know that was happening. So there's a lot of just getting the word out.
And then so say you're in this race, you'd get sworn in right away if you win. You'd be, I think it happens relatively fast, and they're in the middle of a session. I talked to your opponent, and you're gonna either way you're gonna be pretty much drinking out of a fire hose, right? With all the stuff that's getting thrown at you, it's hard, and you're campaigning at the same time. So you get up there. Is there anything that you have your eye on that you're thinking of that you wanted to?
Well, obviously the affordability stuff, the energy prices. We've been talking a lot about that. I've discussed it a lot on social media, and the different fees and things that are making life less affordable. But my passionate issue is related to the Branford Manor situation. It's oversight and accountability, and trying to help figure out. We talked about this at the EDC all the time. We have a need for housing, and we need to figure out how to attract and build housing in our community across all price points. And in order to do that, we're going to be asked for more tax agreements. And when we've done that in the past, like Branford Manor situation, it hasn't worked out. The residents of Branford Manor didn't, they weren't protected. They, dealt with mold issues, and we paid for with the tax agreement services that we didn't get from a company. So, and that's an oversight issue. But like I said, because we need to figure out ways to incentivize housing, we're going to be asked to participate with some tax incentive agreements. We need better oversight. So I'm very passionate about that. I know a lot about the metrics and the mechanics of financing public housing. So I know how to have those conversations with developers, so we don't get taken advantage of. So that's where I really am passionate, and I think I can bring a lot of value in Hartford. Both sides of the aisle, just sharing my experience and knowledge, and being able to work out some plugs to some of the oversight issues and engage in that discussion, so we have right-sized development that we don't,
I think most people don't understand that and being on DECD and council before, you see they say, well, how are you paying for it? If you give anybody a discount on their taxes, you're technically, it's cash out of the pocket, out of the coffers. And then again, I think even being on the council or anything, you just assume that people are always doing the right thing. And the best way to make sure people are doing the right thing is by making sure they're accountable while they're doing it.
Well, the thing is, so because my experience for so long is in the private sector, my dad started the business on Thames Street, so I've sort of grown up negotiating contracts and dealing with vendors. I understand their profit seeking, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. But in the public sector, we have the ability to shape the rules and the laws so that it's a win-win, and we don't do that well enough. We're not taking advantage of our legislative powers to create the rules of the game so that developers are incentivized and can perform, and they can make a decent profit, and we're protecting the taxpayers, right? And
It's a housing. I was on the housing committee, and I actually got to do some of the work with the 830G, which basically, and again, I think this really speaks to that you're interested in, because the state has requirements for towns that are doing building that they have to have so much affordable housing. And there's going to be that push-pull. The contractor saying, that I need this many apartments at this market rate in order to be able to make a dime or a nickel. But then the town also understands that, if we need people, young people in particular, I shouldn't say just young, because everyone needs to pay rent and bills are high. But you also got to keep in mind that, you don't want to be San Diego, where children that grew up and went to a school and live in a neighborhood just can't afford to do that. And we're really starting to get that feeling.
It's shocking
on this
that
coast.
we're kind of getting there. We're not building housing, and it's a very contentious issue, because a lot of times when we're looking at housing, they're trying to put it in areas in the town that doesn't make sense. So we need to have an honest conversation with public engagement locally about where do we do infill, where is the best kind of areas to add housing that don't disrupt the character and nature of what we have here. But we need to make those decisions locally, otherwise the pressure is coming. As you know from Hartford and other areas, they want to sort of pull back some of the decision making. I think that's the wrong approach, but it's happening,
And on the DECD, we deal with, so you are being assigned to, I believe Pleasant Valley as someone that's. So again, I think someone that has their feet in, and I like being involved in things like that, because it really gives you a different perspective.
Right.
So when you do go to Hartford, you're not kind of guessing. You kind of you see the mechanics of taking even just an old school that seemingly it seems like it'd be easy. Like when I was on the council, these buildings have been empty for a while. But now there's a lot of development interest. The economy has changed in our area. But what are you looking for? This is more local politics, I guess. But it really, are you looking to apply TIFs to that, or are you looking to work with a?
Well, right now we're reviewing the RFPs that came in for that property, and there's a whole metric of does it meet the criteria that the town is looking for in our RFP and things like that. So. I think that process is great. I would like to complain a little bit that it's taken us that long to get these schools on the market, right? I don't think that the process should have been. I mean, we've been delayed. I think there was a year moratorium in getting RFPs out because of discussion about the rules of that. I mean, these things have to get streamlined. Like we're I don't want to. I don't think we should move so fast that we don't have oversight and we don't thoroughly review and vet developers and things like that. But we can't sit on this, right?
No.
The people that suffer are the young people that can't live here, rocketing prices and stuff like that. So, it's important that we have some urgency.
And right? I think when I was a counselor, you understand how methodical government has to act, because it isn't private. There's 40,000 people that all of a sudden, the people in the bubble, and I say bubble, but I mean the people that all go to the meetings. invariably somebody will see me at the grocery store and say, "What did you put that there for?" I was like, you know what? I think DECD is reaching out right now, telling everybody, "Hey, come to these meetings because we're doing the POCD right now, right?"
Well,
we want people to be involved.
I think a lot of that I learned, becoming involved with boards and commissions. So much of this is about information, like getting information out and letting the public understand how they can have input on those things. And the POCD is such a great example.
Yeah.
I don't think people understand how formative that document is. That, for 10 years, that sort of sets sort of the parameters of what we want to see in what areas of town. And this is the opportunity for everybody in the communities to come in and say, there's more open space here, or we want to see infill here, or this is how transportation will work. So so that's why when at the EDC, we're picking that up and tying it with outreach to connect with the businesses and connect with people and let them know that that's happening, and also that they can participate in the
I think all of our conversations always end up saying, well, we want to get more people involved in the decision making, because the decisions usually have there's less people complaining about them if they feel like they had part in it.
Yeah.
If they said, hey, I want this to go here, or I want this school to look like this. And then there's that part where you have to explain to folks that private property is also still private property.
Yeah.
And you might be frustrated when you go buy a building or something that you see that just seems like it's taking too long. But if it's private property, I think that's the distinction that we make between your frustration is probably with the sale of the schools. That's something we can control. But private property, you have to, maybe the tax incentives, that's how you work with those folks.
Well, the other thing we got to remember, and but I want to caveat this, I'm not making the excuse or letting anyone off the hook, because there are areas of town that we've discussed that is privately held and we all wish would be developed, right?
Yeah.
We wish people would take action. But what you got to remember is, just like the council and we in town have so many different people involved in decision making on disposition for a school, sometimes these parcels are owned by a conglomerate of people. There's an LLC that has 20 people, that they all can't agree what to do with it. So, it's important to understand the dynamics, because if you're going to incentivize or try to, cajole those individuals to take action, you need to understand what they're up against too. Sometimes it's a committee they're dealing with too. So, it's.
So I'll bring up. We'll talk a little bit about education, because when you go up there, my first introduction to the legislature was Governor Malloy somehow removing $5 million from ECS funding that came to Groton, and I was floored, because I think being on RTM and on the council, just feeling like ECS and not knowing how it worked totally, the mechanics of it in Hartford. Right. I kept saying, I'm going to run, and there's no way it should still be $25 million. We were getting $25 million back in 2000, and it's 2016. It's still, and they were saying, we're holding you harmless because you didn't have as many students. I didn't know the whole metric of what was happening, but I do know that $25 million isn't enough.
Right.
But we also know that federal, state budgets are kind of hammering out how much you're going to get from who. Yeah. Day one when you walk in, there could be hey, you know what, Groton's, it hasn't been proposed that way either. I got to point out that we seem to be held harmless. I don't know if you guys saw the budget that came out. Yeah. We're pretty much holding steady, but that is a fight that has to be fought every single year, it's tough.
One of the things that I've been very grateful for, so the Riverfront Children's Center right on Thames Street, I'm the president of the board there, so I've gotten involved in this last 2 years, and really understood the importance of early childhood education and how funds for that are. It's a smart investment.
It's the best investment.
It's such a great investment. As a parent, it's like the returns are incredible. It's the right thing to do. So those kind of fights to make sure that we have money for education is definitely something I won't shy away from. What I think the question more is, like, we need to fund programs and have metrics for whether it's delivering the outcomes that we want, and then make more adjustments, right? I think that,
I think it's
I
difficult.
don't think we do that enough.
Metrics are so hard, because it's hard to really understand, like a kid enjoying school and still going. Yeah. And how do you count that if you didn't give them the right experience, or you weren't able to meet their needs,
not necessarily,
that they left, or how do you keep track of some of that?
And it's not the metrics on the kids; it's the metrics on the spending. Like if we want to put more money into X program, what we want to increase reading levels or whatever, then we measure that. And if it's not working, try another approach, right?
Yeah.
That's one of the things government, across the board doesn't do enough of. We don't, for whatever reason, sometimes, we don't check in to see, we had this assumption and this is why we put money here. Did it work, right? And then somehow it's like difficult to change, bureaucratic inertia or whatever. But I think that there needs to be a little more flexibility, define the outcome, and then put the money toward it, and make adjustments if you're not getting there. It's probably like you do at Hillary, right? I mean,
Oh yeah, you learn a lot when you get the opportunity sometimes, especially in quoting. And I'm sure, in the beginning of a process or contract, you're figuring out how much something should cost and how much time it should take.
Yeah.
And I think that will, and I'm sure you've done the same thing at your job.
Yeah.
I think that prepares your brain to think about how to make things work.
Yeah.
Like maybe the education question comes up and you might not have been aware about certain things, but you know how you need, what the end game is.
Yeah.
And using metrics to measure the kids. And I think that it's important.
Right.
I think that at the end of the day, you have to be able to say that your reading level increased. But when you look at other countries, they're really not doing as much testing because they're saying, is it if you're testing them on all these reading levels all the way through,
right,
are they really advancing? And
right.
and I mean, that's a
right.
question for our educators. And
no, a lot of it is you can't teach to the test, right?
Yeah.
If the metrics are about like the kids taking tests and things like that, you can get skewed outcomes. I'm talking more like if you're making an investment in something, you need to be able to measure whether that investment is producing the results that you're investing for. And it's not just teaching the kids. There's other ways to make, high school graduation trends over time, right? More money in early childhood education and how many more, there's a lot of data analytics that we can do over time here that's non-invasive to the, kids having fun. They don't need to take another test, and we can understand whether what we thought was a good idea is actually a good idea.
Yeah, and then switching over from education, I'd say the one of the biggest issues in Connecticut to me when I was up there was transportation.
Yeah.
Right now, I shouldn't say right now, but when I was up there were like $67 billion in projects that if, magic wand, we had all the money in the world, Connecticut would have instated and started doing the work on. The Gold Star Bridge is going to be $550 million.
Could they paint it? I've gotten calls about, like, can we just paint?
Paint it?
Like it's rusty. Like, no, honestly,
You're not
there was
selling
a
a
couple,
used car,
there were a couple
right?
people very upset. They're like,
Yeah.
we love our community, but when you drive up to you see all the rust pockets.
Yeah. It's it's actually concrete falling. There's the paint. The paint is the least of the problems with that bridge. It's 85 years old or so. So there's gonna be some questions on how we pay for that because right now, the only way that we actually collect dollars for our transportation is through the gas tax. Mm-hmm. If you look at the amount of registered cars that are becoming electric now. I was a toll guy and I got absolutely fried. Like nobody liked the tolls, but and there are other ways to do it. Yeah. Through taxation and maybe it's through a general property tax, but I know that we can't have that go any higher than it is. Any ideas or and again, they talk about the trains and lessening traffic, but we've been talking about that since 1960, and it's really hard to get our finger on that. We don't have the best weather up here in Connecticut. If you get out of a train station and have to walk even a half a mile, that's not even really feasible. But that would even be like best case scenario. Yeah. But what do what's your approach?
So stepping back a little, related to transportation. So I'm the seat representative for Groton.
Yeah.
So that's been really interesting. So at the time right now, we're going from a flag down system for the buses to a fixed stop.
Fixed stop. Yeah.
So there's been a lot of discussion about that, and where to put the money, where to put the stops, how to. There's also micro transit issues in there. I think that there needs to be a good investment. We also, one of the things about the fixed stops is when you have reliable service between points, right? People can start using public transportation more and rely on it more, and so there's a lot of investments that can happen there. But again, it's it's metrics, finding out how people utilize that public transport, where they're going, whether it's doctors' offices and things, what times, and how you kind of shift services on that. There's transition to the electric buses.
Yep.
So there was a big discussion about that because the diesel buses have a certain range that you do, and then like the electric buses aren't quite there yet, so we need a little more buses in the fleet. But yeah, back down. I'm not going to touch the tolls right now.
No.
I'm not a toll guy.
No.
When
I was the only one.
Yeah,
it seemed like me and like 5 other people. It sounded like, and that was the joke. They're like, Joe, stop talking about tolls, and I couldn't do it because I couldn't wrap my head around the 67 billion. And that's the other thing too. I think you've been at the local level. You've seen what the Groton budget looks like and how it operates. And then when you get up to the state, the numbers stop meaning stuff. They're just so exploded, even though it's just all it is extrapolating out that instead of having 6 square miles of roads to take care of or 90 linear miles, the state of Connecticut has, it just extrapolates out. So the numbers are bigger and the decisions are the same, but there's a lot more, I feel like there's room for error and room for.
Yeah, I mean, my whole philosophy and what I promised if I get elected, it would be, just remembering that things cost money. And unfortunately, all these equations like tolls and gas tax and things, it's all like working men and women and families, and the people can least afford it, right? They're asked, pick up a little more percentage here, a little more percentage here. So we got to figure out a better way to do it. I mean, we talked about this at the EDC a little bit. The wealthier has gotten wealthier, right? But it doesn't seem to have increased everybody's well-being as much as it should. And there's ways to make sure that we make better deals and better decisions about funding these things that don't always sort of burden people that can't that are already carrying a lot. Like the elderly in our community related to, property taxes, right? 4% every year, year over year. If you're on a fixed income.
No, it's amazing when you really talk to people. And I had the ability to go up there and we talked about minimum wage at breakfast, and you're like, you know what? You don't
want more than minimum.
Yeah, no one can understand how you live on the minimum wage that it is, and how do you.
No, I'm not saying we don't need to. We need to have, but we don't need to abandon it. But the point is, we shouldn't be fighting for a minimum. We want to create, an exceptional opportunity here where we're creating great jobs, really funded jobs. But I'm not trying to minimize, but the conversation has shifted. It's not like this isn't Charles Dickens' time in the 19th century with labor and capital, right? We have the internet and we have all this high technology, and I made the analogy, Blockbuster Video came and went in my year. But sometimes we have conversations about funding things in government that's like, from the 1960s, and we're just not there anymore, right? Things are different, and there's other ways to handle this stuff.
Yeah, and there's a lot to think about.
Yeah.
And without going like completely getting out of here, without talking about what's fun for Bob. What do you do? I know you've been working out, man. I'm a little jealous because I've been talking about doing it. I haven't been able to start doing it, but you lost a few pounds. You're looking good.
Yeah.
At your fighting weight, maybe.
I started to. This last year, I have 2 daughters. They're my older daughter Ava's a sophomore at Cornell, and the younger daughter Olivia is a freshman in North Carolina. So they've been after me to get in shape, right?
I'm hearing it from my daughter too.
So I started eating healthy, and I just started working out a little more and stuff like that. But spending time with them, like I go up to Cornell and might fix my daughter's closet and stuff, handyman stuff, stuff Dad does, right? I like that, But also I was joking with somebody. I sort of over-volunteered, so I'm very busy with boards and commissions, right?
Yeah.
But I like it. It's fun.
It is.
But that's between my work and those things.
You find yourself.
It's a good thing that it's fun.
Yeah.
But that's what Bob does for fun. I don't know if that's a cry for help or not.
I think that we're in the same boat on a lot of different ways. And before I used to volunteer for everything.
Yeah.
And now I realize that sometimes keeping your mouth shut in a meeting is best.
Yeah.
Because it was like, can you do that? And you're like, I know I could do that, and I could do a good job.
Well, the problem is when they know you can do it, they're like, Joe, you can do it.
Exactly.
And then you got to say no. That's where that's what they caught me. They're like, Bob, you do it. Like, all right. And then finally, I'm like, no. I'm busy.
And you've been bitten by the bug because there's very few of us, to me, like everyone can say, they're down about politicians, but very few of us are willing to go knock on someone's door and ask to do a job that's not always appreciated, especially these days. I felt appreciated. I mean, I think luckily constituents here, and I'm sure you feel it.
Yeah.
But people in Groton come up to me all the time and say, "Oh, I like what you did when you did. I might not agreed with you this or that," and they'll tell you everything.
Yeah.
But there is a sense of, I think, civic duty that's respected. I think, especially in this district. And I mean, I see people, when you go to DECD meetings, they thank, hey, Bob, thanks for doing this. Yeah. Thanks for getting the meeting together, because it's important. Is there?
Yeah, I think people get a sense of if you keep consistently showing up like you have year over year here, people know, like, whether you agree with everything politically about you, they'll appreciate that you're involved, right? We all see that. We're a community at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Right? That's why I always think this is a little naive, but locally we really shouldn't be political parties, right? There's a certain level, I understand it gets higher up.
We're in
party system is
fixing roads
but
part.
but a lot of this is like, it's not, and we sort of hamstring ourselves when we put our teams together already divided along party lines. Like when we're negotiating with the private sector, they just put the greatest team together. They don't care who's a Democrat and Republican, and then they negotiate with us, and we divide ourselves like, oh, who's on this team? Anyway, it's just.
No,
it's not going to change, but
it won't. But right now it does seem like a football game.
Yeah.
And right now one team has won a couple championships in a row, and the other team is it's like, but that winning the championship in politics doesn't mean that you won the game. It means that, okay, how can we make everyone's life better after?
Yeah.
And that is really, it's a tough thing to do, because I think people in parties, I got to admit that when you get there, you're trying to get your things done that you think you can do while you have control and while the party is in, and all those things come up in conversation. But in the end, we are fixing roads and making our schools better and trying to make that all go. I only got 2 minutes. I knew this was going to go fast.
Yeah.
I'll let you do your 30-second pitch to the people out there. We got an election in 2 days. I mean, no, more than 2 days, on Tuesday.
Yeah.
But, who's Bob Boris? Why are they coming out for you,
Well, chairman of the Economic Development Commission. I love my community, be very, very grateful to represent the 40th. I'm very passionate about what I bring to the table, oversight and accountability to deal with these issues in a very practical way. My objective would be to make sure that I make everybody better, Democrats and Republicans up in Hartford. Like I said, the Branford Manor issue sort of really stoked a fire in me, because it was something that I understand. Yep. I understand housing. I understand how it's financed. I understand how some of these developers think, and I think I can create a win-win up in Hartford so that it can sort of transform that. And like I said earlier, it's important because we're going to be asked to kick in tax incentive agreements from our community. In order to do that, you have to have good oversight. We have to clean that up. So anyway, the point is, I love my community. I'll know I'll do a great job. And we have a little bit of a party imbalance in Hartford right now. It's send a couple more Republicans up there and get a couple, mix up the ideas, right? Get some new ideas, and me see what I show what I can do, and you can judge me based on an actual voting record.
That's it. All right, everyone. This is Ben Born Political. Bob, I want to thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for running. I mean, obviously, you guys, what's important and mostly important, if you're out there and you're watching the show, is on Tuesday. Hopefully before Tuesday. We have early voting, like Bob suggested. Go in early. I plan on vote. Well, I don't plan on voting early because he's not my representative. I'm saying my plan. I lied. I have no plan because I guess I was trying to figure out when I was going to vote. I'm actually must be getting almost senior citizen age. But I am not voting in this election. If you are inside the 40th, this Tuesday is the election. Again, thank you for coming on, Bob. And we will see you guys. And I'll either way, you'll be back on the show. Win or lose, I would love to have you back on. And same with Dan. We'll see you guys. This has been Born Political. See you next Thursday.